Yeah, this really got into like a, but this is good. I want people to understand where our culture is and what's happening with, and why it's important that we cling to these principles, these ideas about the law of God. And it's more and more people, we've seen those videos before where Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort are on the street asking people, can you name any of the 10 Commandments? And they know like 2 or 3. Because no one's reminded. I mean, it used to be pretty clear. Everyone knew what God had expected of us. And
they don't even say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. I used to say it in elementary and middle school and high school.
High school.
London's class still does.
They say it in London's class.
When I was in high school, they did it every morning. They played it, and if you wanted to,
right,
you had to stand up. They made you stand up. You didn't have to put your right hand over your heart or anything.
I remember a few years ago at a basketball game,
they have it,
it made huge news because this girl turned her back to the American flag while they played the national anthem.
People do that shit, they should get kicked out of America.
That's what Teddy Roosevelt said. I totally agree. This is a melting pot, which means we're all supposed to lose our former national identities and cultural differences and join together in a melting pot of united beliefs and ideals. If you're not willing to do that, no hard feelings, we're not going to kill you. Just don't come to our country.
You don't want to be here, obviously.
Yeah.
You're turning your back to it. So
well, the Muslims are, they have an agenda. I mean, they're literally trying to take over our country with their ideas. They did it in France. France right now is really struggling because Muslims are being elected to different positions and changing laws. In fact, Muslims, it's outlawed in France to be polygamist, but Muslims, which make up about 7 to 10% of the population, live openly in multiple marriages. I mean, but the French government, everyone's afraid of them, basically. And the difference between our generation and generations before us is our unwillingness to recognize evil. There seems to be a real unwillingness today for Americans to recognize evil and call evil evil. Whereas the greatest generation had no problem saying that Hitler was evil. No problem at all. And they understood that the only way to overcome evil is with overwhelming force. I think it was Ariel Sharon, who used to be the Prime Minister of Israel a couple of times. He said that the goal of Israel was to completely demoralize their opponent, their enemy, and to create in their enemy a culture of defeat so that they never believed that they were able to defeat Israel. And they succeeded. They won the 67 war, the 6-Day War. They won all kinds of wars against greater opponents than them with overwhelming force. The United States did the same thing with Japan. Japan was imperialist. We had more than one enemy in World War II. We were fighting in two theaters. One was European theater. We were fighting against Nazi Germany. The other was the Pacific theater. We were fighting against imperialist Japan. They worshipped their emperor and believed that it was their destiny to basically take over the world. They invaded China, which opened the door for Mao to step in and make it even more communist than it was. But we had to completely destroy their will to fight, and that's what we did with the A-bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We completely broke them, and that's the only way to confront evil. You can't appease evil. In fact, bullies get more, they get angry at you when you try to appease them, and they take more from you. It makes them mad when you try to appease them. You have to fight a bully, and we seem to have lost that. And that's what this book's about. A lot of this book is about that. Being able to recognize evil. Barack Obama, for the first year of his presidency, refused to call it a war on terror. There was an overseas contingency plan. That's absurd. You never heard anyone in his administration use the word terrorist until recently, because they see how bad they're being beaten in different elections, and they're afraid they're going to lose big time in November. So I think it's Janet Napolitano, just recently started using the word terrorist, and just called the Fort Hood massacre. She said that that guy was a terrorist for the first time. We all knew he was a terrorist. He said Allahu Akbar. before he started killing
What does
everyone.
that mean?
Like, praise be Allah.
Yeah, Allah is the greatest, basically.
Yeah.
He's a terrorist. But when we refuse to identify evil, how are we supposed to confront it? You know, how do we combat it with righteousness? How do we stand up against it? How do we compare and give people an alternative? If this is what is taught as truth and it's evil, well, I have to first identify that it's evil. If I don't identify that it's evil, I think it's okay, then I'm not going to do anything to stop it. If I think that same-sex marriage is okay, and I don't identify it as being immoral, well, then I'm never going to stand up to it. If everything is just okay, and in this pluralistic society that we live in, our culture is so pluralistic, we have to just accept everything. It's just an alternative view. Well, where did evil, what happened to evil? Where did evil go? When the Bible talks about deliver us from evil, where's evil at today? Like, when's the last time on the news or TV or anywhere in a newspaper, when's the last time anyone that you can remember described any kind of behavior as evil? I mean, even mass murderers.
Unless they talk about Marilyn Manson.
They won't even call him evil. He just has a different idea of things. Mass murderers aren't mass murderers. Let's try to understand the psychology. They weren't fed pancakes as babies, and they love pancakes. It's their mom's fault.
Where does George Bush got criticized for
axis of evil?
Yeah, when he said that.
Oh, people were. Did you call him evil?
Yeah.
Did you know that Sean Penn, you know the actor Sean Penn?
Yeah.
He loves Hugo Chavez, and it was on Fox News front page today. He came back after meeting with Hugo Chavez.
Who is Hugo Chavez?
Hugo Chavez is the dictator of Venezuela. He's very good friends with Putin. He's very good friends with any communist leader. They're financing. Since they're in our hemisphere, they're a big friend of anyone who's evil around the world that wants to destroy America. And Cuba's only 100 miles away. He's really good friends with Castro, because if he can get people, Iran is funneling tons of Hezbollah fighters into Venezuela in hopes that they can get them up South America and Central America, Mexico, and get them across our borders, because they can't fly in anymore, and it's impossible. So they're trying everything. Hezbollah is huge in Venezuela right now. But Sean Penn goes there, shakes hands with Hugo Chavez, meets with them, comes back and says any reporter in America that refers to him as a dictator should be thrown in jail. They should die screaming of rectal cancer. Okay, that's tolerant. So you're saying that he, a murderer, cold-blooded murderer who hates America, is a good man, but anyone who says anything about him should be thrown in prison and should really just die of a terrible disease. You can't have one or the other. You can't say, this guy's good, and everyone who says he's not good is evil. Well, you just done what you condemned them for doing. You've called a man evil and said that anyone who called him evil is evil. Well, that's the problem with tolerance. Tolerant people at your university, if you have liberal professors, which you probably have some at ISU, they preach this tolerance. The problem is they're not tolerant. If you're tolerant, then tolerate my viewpoint that's against yours. You can't say, let's all be tolerant as long as we agree to this. And if you don't agree to this, then get out. Well, you just become intolerant, which is what you accuse Christianity of being. And Christianity is intolerant. It is exclusive. It says there's one way. It says there is a truth, capital T. It says that there is a God, and His rule and His law is all that matters. Not what I can come up with or you can come up with. It's what God says, and that's very exclusive. It says that Buddha is not God. Allah is not God. At least not with a capital G. He's a moon god. That's why their symbol is a crescent and a star. Allah's been around for a long time. He's just a moon god. He's not the God of Abraham. He's not the God of the Old Testament. He's not another alternative path to the one true God. He's just another God that's a moon. And Jesus is very exclusive. He says, I'm the only way. I'm the door. I'm the truth. I'm the life. No one gets to God except through me. There's no other door. There's no other alternative, no other doctrine or teaching or idea